Well, hello, everybody, and happy Friday. I hope you all have had a wonderful week. And for those of you who I saw earlier on my show with Carrie, interesting show, that's for sure. So I hope you all had a fantastic week and looking forward to a great weekend. Well, I must say my son is here at the moment. So I'm happy. And yeah. How are you, Catherine? Good to see you again. I know we missed our show last week. How's it going?
Yeah, no, good. My daughter was here last week, which is why I couldn't do the show actually, because I was picking her up. But it's so lovely to see our children. I feel like we do say April showers when it's just coming into May, but we've had about 10 different seasons in one day already today. So I'm a little bit wet and windblown. But I'm generally very good, but it feels like the end of the week. It's been a busy week.
It has been a busy week. And in fact, crazy week. I mean, and I think, you know what, and I say this every week just about, and I mean it every week, that life just gets crazier by the minute. I mean, you know, I think the times we're living in now, it's such a privilege actually to be living in these times, you know. We get to experience such a vast, expansive life. There's never a dull moment, right? I mean, there's always something going on, especially, you know, when we're doing these channels and shows and stuff like that. I mean, we really, you know, it's actually quite an amazing thing to experience what we're experiencing, I think, anyway, you know, to see what people are going through. Hello, Lisa. Nice to see you. Hello, Carol. Nice to see you too. Good morning. Good morning. It's good afternoon, yeah, for me. Almost evening, actually.
Yeah.
But it's a great time to be alive. And, you know, and we're talking about a taboo topic. And I know it's not an easy topic. Although, oh, that's your puppy, your kitty.
It's Pumpkin. Oh. It's Pumpkin. And I've got the two dogs on the sofa behind. But I thought everyone had to see Pumpkin because he's so magnificent. Yeah.
Oh, he's so cute, just sitting there with his fluffy face staring at you. You know, looking at cats, there's this, I just recently discovered this YouTube channel with this cat. It's this young, they look like an Arab couple, but the cat is Chase. He's like an African wildcat looking cat. His name is Chase. My gosh, this cat is incredible. And then they've got 3 other cats and her mom. They take them to the store. This cat, he talks to her. It's the most insane thing. I mean, I'm like, what happened to my cats?
Well, all they do is literally, if I made a show about my animals, I would be a millionaire if I could get someone to film it, because you couldn't make up, if you tried, what Idris and Mitzi get up to, 2 of my Romanian cats. I mean, they literally go miles. They torture you. They climb all over you. I mean, they're more human than most humans, let's put it that way. And you are too, Pumpkin. You're magnificent. But yeah, you know, thank goodness for our animals. That's what I say. Thank goodness for our animals, because it is such a mad world, and mad in good ways. You know, mad can be good ways. But I've had a lot of really deep discussions on my interviews this week. And, you know, we had Kathy O'Brien, we had Bryce and I have been covering some pretty serious issues. And it's like, we were talking a bit, Chantelle, before we came on, about it's a lot of time of choice for a lot of us. You know, we love doing this work massively, and it's so important to have these conversations. But equally, we've both got families to look after, and we want to be growing our own food and doing all these sort of things. So it's quite a time of decisions, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. You know, I think definitely, and not just decisions about what we do, what I'm noticing as well, hence the topic, you know. And I know for many people, death is a taboo topic. You know, you speak to people from different cultures, everyone will deal with death differently. You know, some people, after 3 days, you don't talk about the dead anymore. The older generations, you know, you don't talk about them anymore. You know, you move on, you know, that sort of thing. So not just what the choices we're making in our lives, what I'm seeing more and more is the choices that people are making to live or to die right now. When I say die, I don't see death as the end. I see death as the end of this chapter, maybe, but the beginning of a whole other chapter. And that I discovered when, always, I have to say, I grew up with my granny, as many of you know. My granny was also a seer, and and as is my mother. And it's like really understanding about reincarnation, that what we don't actually ever really die. It's just, the body, we leave the body behind. When I lost my fiance many years ago, I remember when in that time of going to the mortuary to identify his body, just like that was such a shocking experience for me. But then, so clear, his voice just saying to me, just remember, I'm here. It's just my body. I'm still here. So, and that feeling I will never, ever forget. And that enabled me. And I always say, that was the single most important experience that enabled me to do the work I do today. Because it really is, living the gift of death. Death can be a gift for many people if we choose to see it that way, because death is not about the ones, in my opinion, that die. It's about those of us who are left behind. And how do we deal with that loss? What do we choose to do with a loss once we've lost someone near and dear to us, So for me, it's an interesting topic, which, wow, so many, talk about a crazy couple of weeks. I've certainly had some crazy regarding friends, good friends who've lost loved ones in these past 2 weeks as well. So which was kind of my inspiration to talk about this today. But yeah, I'd like to find out from you as well, Catherine. Firstly, let me ask you, and I'm sure you have you lost someone in your life that is close to you that has really affected your heart in a major way? And what is your take on death and living and dying, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I've lost so many people, humans and animals, that are very close to me. I think my earliest memory of death was my granddad, who I was very close to, dying when I must have been about 6 or 7, and it was awful because he had cancer, and he was one of the first people in the UK to have chemotherapy. And I won't go into too many details, but just horrendous, just burnt him alive, basically. So after a certain amount of time when he was going through that, then we weren't allowed to see him because he was very close to us and we were very young, and he didn't want us to see him in that state. But equally, when I was 20, my best friend at university was killed in a car accident. Very sudden, very traumatic. Everyone else in the car walked away without a scratch on them, and he was killed. And the list goes on. I lost, obviously, my father, my grandmother was very close to, but also loads of animals as well. So each one affects you differently. For me personally, I think when it's an older person or an older animal and it feels like the end of that particular cycle on to the next one, of course you miss them terribly, and sometimes you wish that they could pass over in a way that involved a lot less suffering in the process. But it's, for me personally, it's much easier to accept. Was when it's a young person or a young animal or something that very sudden has happened, it can be very traumatic because it really brings home from quite a selfish point of view often. Now, you really want to talk to us about this, don't you, Pumpkin? Pumpkin's actually lost all his best friends. Pumpkin's one of my rescue cats, and he's one of our eldest, and he's lost all of his best friends. So that's probably why he's joining in this conversation a lot.
Pumpkin, you cutie patootie.
Yeah, my view on death is I 100% believe. I would say it's not even a belief, it's a knowing in reincarnation, because I've had loads of experiences from a very young child that have memories of past lives and certain instances. And that started very, very young. Also, when I was a young child, my cousin died of a cot death. And the night before he died, we weren't close, the families at all. But the night my other cat's stuck in a box now over there, so if I have to go and rescue her, then I will. He died of a cot death, and the night before he died, I had this vivid dream about him. Now, that was unusual because the two families weren't close. You know, it's not like we saw him a lot or anything. So I 100% know in my heart, know in my being that it's not the end, but it's the end of that particular relationship in the way that you've got it. So my dad, even though he was 83 when he died in 2020, from a selfish point of view, it's been awful because all these things that have been happening, I now realise from things he said, he must have known a lot more than we ever had discussions about. And I've never had the chance to have those discussions now. And there's so much now that I wish I'd asked him. I wish we'd had those discussions. And I think this is why probably it ties in when you mention that to how I've been feeling this week about, I feel personally a time with everything's going on, a time for a real reset in terms of where I'm spending my time and energy, because you don't ever get those times back. Once they're gone in this physical sense, you might have a different relationship with them, fine, but it's not the same and you can't get that back, whether it's a human or an animal. So it's a tricky
It's so
one.
true. It's so true. It's so true. You know, and I'd love to hear from you guys and girls in the chat as well. Mary, you saying you lost your daughter, but I can feel her around me all the time. Absolutely. I can so resonate with that as well. I would love to hear from you guys. It looks like ladies in the chat, but obviously if there are guys in there as well. If you've had experience, I think we all have maybe had experience around death or losing someone close to us. Maybe I would love to hear from you what your take is on that, how you dealt with it maybe. Because, you know, as I was saying as well, right now it's such a crazy time. For me, you know, as many of you know, and I don't want to go into it because it's just boring going through the same thing over and over. My fiance was killed in a carjacking many years ago. And although I got to tell you, it still feels like yesterday some days. And not that the wound is raw, but his presence is often so strong. You know, there'll be certain days, like on his birthday, for example, where I literally hear his voice, you know. And it's not like I yearn. I've moved forward. But it's really good to know, and it gives me a comfort that they are still around and will still think about us as well and come and pop in and say hi on pertinent dates like that, stuff like that as well. And I've always maintained he died for me. Had it not been for that experience I lived in my life, I would not be doing the work I am today, because that experience really did give me a gift. And, you know, I know not everyone agrees with astrology and stuff, but I have a sister who's a brilliant astrologer. And I remember at the time, she read my chart and she just said to me, you have two choices here. She said, you can either become South Africa's white Winnie Mandela. Now, Winnie Mandela at the time was Nelson Mandela's wife. And she was angry. She had what they call at the time the necklacing, which was the horrific thing. That there was so much violence in South Africa at the time, and there was this horrific way of killing people that didn't agree with them, putting a tire around the neck, dousing it with petrol and setting them alight. So that was the way that people were, at that stage being killed. And she said to me, you either can become angry like that and you become a victim of yourself, or this situation is going to take you to some incredible, this can be the greatest spiritual gift from God if you allow it to be. And I chose the latter. I chose that experience. And really it has been, because over the years, it opened up my consciousness on so many levels. It enabled me to see things. It enabled me to become more compassionate, more understanding, more loving. in many, many ways, right? So I chose to see this and use it as a gift, because at the time for me, it was like, if today was your last day on earth, and you knew that it was somebody else's last day on earth today, what would you choose to do with this day? And how would you live this day? And for me, and even though I can't say I've always lived my best life every day, because life sometimes happens, but it was absolutely one of those times where I choose to, that's when I chose to become a healer. When I chose to become, to talk to people, to express things. And, it's on several occasions, I've had loved ones commit suicide, or not my loved ones. I'm trying to think of the right way, like clients of mine, for example, clients and students of mine, who've had close people commit suicide, and I would be the first phone call that they would make. One mother in particular, her daughter shot herself through her heart in front of her, and I was the first phone call she made. And to be able to be that strong. Is something going on there, Catherine?
Yeah, don't worry. Carry on. I'll just be turn my camera off for a sec. Yeah.
It's fine. And just to be that strong pillar for someone at a time like that is truly an amazing experience. So I just, I think, and to be able to talk someone through those times and to be able to connect to the spirit of the being that has crossed over during those times is a very, very amazing thing to be for someone in difficult times. And I'm just watching here, Dragonfly, my greatest loss is my hubby 2020. I feel him and he tosses pennies at me. The dates and the pennies hold significant meanings for our life together, 43 years. I think that is so beautiful, because that, again, for me is such a strong sign that we don't die. The body dies, but the spirit lives on, right? My mom and Iwe lead cow, not lead cow, lead cow, Iwo. My mom loved emerald perfume. I think that's the name. But one time I got completely overwhelmed by that smell in the middle of nowhere. I knew it was related to her. Absolutely. And that is such a dead giveaway, if you will, that the person is around you, because very often the spirits of those people will come to you at those times you'll smell, or their favorite flower, or there'll be something familiar. And just for that nanosecond, a split second, you'll get that smell or that sense, or just have a memory flashback. And that would certainly be an indicator. Lisa, my uncle knew I was still dealing with some people still when I came home, my senses were around at all times. Exactly. We can learn from death learn more from death than anything else. Exactly, Mary. And that's unconditional love. Absolutely. Because, when someone leaves, especially suddenly, it's a very shocking experience to have to deal with as well. And, when we learn how to move through that, we can be there for other people in a patient, loving, kind way. Iwo again, when my late husband died and I was leaving the funeral arrangements almost in slow motion, these empty 4-inch pots danced across the road in front of my car. We had a plant nursery. I was in the city. You see, it's these kind of things which I absolutely love. I love it when these things happen. I also know when after Hannes, my fiance, died, I had a bookshelf. And in the book, I don't remember the author now, but the title of the book was The Heart Listens. And I remember watching, just staring one evening. It was not long after his death. And then it's like that book fell out of the book. I was watching it happen. And I often thought to myself, did I make it happen? But I wasn't aware that the book was there. But I know that was him. And just The Heart Listens. And that book fell out. So for me, that was such an indicator, of these things as well. My father-in-law collected leaves and placed in windowsill. At his funeral, the oak tree suddenly dropped hundreds of leaves. We were all joyful because of that. You know, and another topic to look at is suicide, because a lot of people have doubts about whether those who commit suicide go to hell, or if they, you know, move on and pretty much go to a much more peaceful place. Absolutely, I agree. And I want to just share with you guys as well. This past, wow, it's very recent, but my best friend, my bestie, her birthday is a week after mine. I'm on the 10th of February. She's on the 17th, and our sons are born on the same day. And so we're talking tomorrow, 2 weeks back. Her partner shot himself on her birthday in her driveway. I mean, and again, I was the first phone call, or message rather. It's just such a shocking thing. And I got to tell you, you know, when I met her, I think we were trying to figure out, I think we met in 2005. And she was actually interviewing me. She was the editor of a magazine. And it was on one of my trips to Namibia. And she actually she contacted my organizer at the time, or my organizer contacted her, and she was interviewing me. And you know, when two people meet, it's like, I know you. Are you sure we haven't met before? And no, we hadn't met before. But our souls, our spirits, absolutely. That's right, Dragonfly, Helen Van Zalk. And our spirits have known each other from so many lifetimes before. And, you know, it was like when this happened to her, I felt her grief. I mean, I was absolutely crying with it. And I felt her grief in such an intense way. And it's amazing to be able to be the friend to someone who's experienced something similar, and myself, although not in that way. I've not experienced someone's suicide like that before. But just to be there for her every day, talk to her every day, and watch her go through what she's going through, and observe her growth. And she's a very enlightened soul, that's for sure. But I know that's a tough one for a lot of people to deal with as well, and how she's going through it. You know, first the numbness, and she has a 15-year-old son that was also there when it happened. What's going through, how everyone is going through it, but the highs and the lows and the understandings, and then of course the anger that comes along with that, and then the pain of the loss. And it's just amazing to actually watch that and be there with someone as they're going through these experiences. So I'm not sure if anyone else in the chat has experienced something like that, but I'd like to hear from you if you have. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, I mean, everything's got its own different challenge, hasn't it? You know, in terms of, you know, there's the lovely, you pass away peacefully in your sleep, or not due to this intervention, but, you know, if an old person passes away, or an old animal, peacefully in their sleep, that's one thing. But there's a lot of other ways of the actual process of passing that can be incredibly traumatic, both for the one going through it and the loved ones that are supporting them at that time. And I don't know, it's interesting, isn't it? It makes you ponder so much about. It fits in so well with a lot of the discussions I've been having this thing about really all of us taking a real good look at where we are spending our time, because it's such a cliche to say, you know, if this was your last day on earth, what would you do? But most of us don't live our life like that at all. And, you know, there's a reason for that. But perhaps that we could be living in a very different society if we did live like that.
We definitely would, you know, and for me, and that's what I'm saying, it was exactly that made me choose this path, because we never know when it is going to be your last day or somebody else's last day. So, for me, the whole thought around that is that make peace, with people around you, even if, or make peace with yourself in situations, And I know that I have read this before, and I'm going to read it again. Again, one of my favorite books, Khalil Gibran, The Prophet, and it's on death. So I want to read that again because it is such a beautiful poem or insight. I wouldn't say it's a poem, but an insight. Then Almitra spoke, saying, we would ask now of death, and he said, you would know the secret of death, but how shall you find it unless you seek it in the heart of life? The owl whose night-bound eyes are blind unto the day cannot unveil the mystery of light. If you would indeed behold the spirit of death, open your heart wide unto the body of life. And you see, I want to just say on that note there, that for me is such a pertinent note. If you would indeed behold the spirit of death, open your heart wide unto the body of life. Because it's like we all know at some point we're going to die. There's not even a given. I mean, there's not even a question around that. But if we know that, let us live. Let us enjoy life. Let us embrace life. Let us open up our hearts to what life is. For life and death are one, even as the river and the sea are one. It's so true. In the depth of your hopes and desires lies your silent knowledge of the beyond. And like seeds dreaming beneath the snow, your heart dreams of spring. Trust the dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity. Your fear of death is but the trembling of the shepherd when he stands before the king, whose hand is to be laid upon him in honor. Is the shepherd not joyful beneath this trembling, that he shall wear the mark of the king? Yet is he not more mindful of his trembling? For what is it to die but to stand naked in the wind and to melt into the sun? And what is it to cease breathing but to free the breath from its restless tides, that it may rise and expand and seek God unencumbered? Only when you drink from the river of silence shall you indeed sing. And when you have reached the mountain top, then you shall begin to climb. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then shall you truly dance. Isn't that amazing? Because it's like, for me, it also just says, there's the regret often of looking back, it's like only when the earth shall claim your limbs, and then shall you truly dance. There's many ways in my mind to look at that, because yes, it's like that sheath, your body will often be seen as the sheath, and once your spirit releases, it's almost like you're removing a tight suit, right, off your body, and then you're truly dancing. But let us dance while we are in our bodies. Let us be joyful and feel the freedom of life whilst we are still in our bodies. Let us feel the joy of forgiveness, while we are still in our bodies. Let us be okay with each other while we are still in our bodies, not only once we have left. That for me is truly what this is about. Yeah. Let us live while we're alive and enjoy the experience.
I feel very strongly about this, and, controversial opinion, and no one else has to agree with it at all. But I feel in the spiritual community, there's so much talk about we're going on to a better place and everything. But I like to just say it's a different place. For me, it's just different, because it's like we can't have it both ways. If we think, which I believe, my belief system is we've chosen to be here and we've chosen to come in and experience this physical form. And therefore, I want to make the most of it whilst I'm here. And just like you said, dance whilst you are here, make the most of it, feel all the human emotions, the ups and downs, because that's so much part of the process. And whereas I 100% believe that everyone of whatever species, plant, animal, human, when they pass over, it's just a phase to a different part of their journey. it's a bit like all us parents there, and I'm really sending big hugs out to Truffle Shuffle there. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's a lot to go through, and how wonderful that you have that awareness. You know, in terms of when we are here, I think it's so fascinating to look at the human psyche and how much, however much the learnings are, we're looking into the future. And if we can really be present right here, right now, then it changes everything about every relationship, about the relationship we have with death. And it's hard because, you know, people, we do have that part of our brain that allows us to plan ahead and think ahead, and also think back to the past. And I'm putting these in inverted commas. But I do think there's a lack of really taking advantage of where we are here, right now. Even the aging process, the beauty of the aging process. There's not many people that look at a huge, great old oak tree with its gorgeous rivets and, you know, what's the difference between that and all our beautiful wrinkles? And, you know, I can talk because I would have grey hair, but I dye it. I have no idea how much grey it would be. So, you know, I'm not saying that I'm not in this category. But I think the beauty of all the stages of life, you know, I was just reminiscing about my children and how quickly, you know, people with young children and the stress of it all, and not having, I hear my friends with young children say all the time, I've got no time to myself, and hindsight wonderful. And you just want to say, enjoy it. You'll have plenty of time for yourself once they're gone. But of course, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and we all have to go through it. But I do feel that, you know, somehow we're missing the link. We as humanity, we talk about all these things, but we're not really embodying it. We talk about living each day like it's our last, but we don't really do it. We're stressed. You and I were talking about how busy we are and how many juggling responsibilities. And so I see myself caught in this trap. And yet I know when I look at my animals that are getting older, and I just think, wow, you know, this afternoon, should I do that next video or the next business meeting, or should I take my horses who are really old out for a walk?
Yeah. It's so true that, and you're talking about, you know, death and what have you, getting older. And I mean, other than, I mean, our own self, you know, my mom and I are staying on the same property. And as many of you also know, my mom has not been well lately. And it's brought to the fore of my consciousness how easy, and my mother's always been an incredibly strong, vibrant, healthy person. But stuff happened recently that has sort of, her health has gone down. And I've got to tell you, it's such a joy to be here for her. It really is. I will under no circumstances put my mother ever in some kind of an old age home or retirement, whatever. I will not do it. I will get help. I need help, and I have gotten help. Now that starts on Monday with her. But I've had, you know, it's amazing how my mom's illness, because she's an absolute matriarch in the family. I mean, I always talk about the fact that all her ex-in-law children who've been married to us, and some of us have gotten divorced in the family, all the ex-in-laws adore her. My one brother-in-law, ex-brother-in-law, who I've known since I'm 19, lives down the road. He's here for her, and his new wife is here for her as well. You know, she has absolutely been that person, that legacy. She has 14 grandchildren now. A few days ago, the new baby was born. There's now 12 great-grandchildren. It is such a pleasure to be there for someone in their ailing years. And I know she is terrified of going to an old age home or whatever, and I will not do it. So for me, that's another phase of death, is like, how do we choose to deal with the elderly people in our families as well? You know, and I don't want to judge anyone who's doing it differently. I promise you, it's not a judgment. It really is just something for me that was, and I remember as a kid, and my mother always thought my baby brother, who lives in Australia, was going to be the one that looks after her. And I used to get so mad as a kid because I knew I was going to be the one that looked after her when she was old. I knew it as a child. Like, I knew it. I knew I was going to be the one that was here for her. And I was always, of course, the naughty one in the family and the this and the that. And I'm the most, and even my sister, what this has done is brought our family. My sister from Cape Town was here last week. My son is here from Johannesburg now, seeing her, visiting her. There's a lot of that sort of thing with my mom not being well, a lot of coming together of the family in so many ways, which has been an amazing experience. And I said to my sister said to me, yeah, she says, you were here for dad at the end and you were here for mom at the end. And I said, right, the most unlikely child in the family. Right. And it's so true, because these things happen. It brings families together. It brings all sorts of opportunities of reconnection together, which for me is truly a beautiful thing. And as you say, Catherine, it's not even about, it's, this whole enjoyment of growing old. So what if I paint my nails? So what if I color my hair? I'm not attached to that. And so what if you color? You're not attached to that. At the end of the day, we are growing older. It's a lovely thing to grow older, because not many people get that privilege.
It's such a privilege. Yeah, it's such a privilege. Also, I've loved the stage of being an old woman where you can get away with saying whatever you like and everyone accepts it because you're an old woman. I mean, my mum, that I've had a very, very difficult last 6 months with my mum being very unwell. And because I've got my animal sanctuary here and she's got her animal sanctuary there, it's impossible for us to move in together. So it's been really, really challenging. But again, you drop everything and you do it, and you hope that your children will do it for you if you need it. But I'm being extra nice to my children now, so that they know. It is really, really important. And I think this is why I see a lot of spiritual bypassing go on. There's a lot of people that sort of come out with blasé tasks that it would be important enough for you, you'll do it. But without any understanding of what individuals are going through and how important other priorities might be in their life. And I think the whole thing for me comes down to a lack of judgment. Everyone's in a difficult position. You and I have created lives where we work for ourselves, which gives us, certain degree of flexibility, but also if we're not working, we're not getting paid. So, there's pros and cons of all these choices. But the main thing is just for all of us to realize we won't ever get that time back. We won't get it back in this current reality. Who knows, in future lives, the situations might be reversed. But I think there's so much external talk for all of us about what's going on in the world. Who's this? Who's got a mask on? Who hasn't? Who's evil, who's not. And yes, that is important because it's affecting our daily lives, but we've got to keep the tension on ourselves and make sure that we have the best time possible whilst we're here, because every little bit of that attention going outside ourselves will be at a cost.
Absolutely, it's so true. What is also a very interesting topic to look at, and I have to say I'm loving all you ladies sharing your stories in the chat here. I so appreciate that. And I love, Gail, your story. My late husband passed away in 2012. He was a musician. We had many favorite songs. I feel his presence when those songs. Isn't that amazing? It's so true, because I know also with people that I've been close to that have passed away, there's such beauty in music. And when those songs come on, it'll be our song that came on. And you just reminisce for those 4 or 5 minutes. And you just have those moments with those people again. And it's like they certainly do visit you through the music. I find that often. And it's beautiful. And sometimes you want to shed a tear. And that's fine. Sometimes you want to laugh and just have good. For me, it's such a healthy thing to be able to embrace those moments, speak about them, share them with people. Then there'll be certain cultures that after 3 days, you can't talk about the dead anymore because now you move forward. I don't agree with that. I'm not saying it's wrong. And for other people, it might be very right, but I don't agree with that, you know. It's like my friend's mother said to her the other day, we don't talk about him anymore. And she said, you've got to be freaking joking. I'm only just not even 2 weeks into this. I'm going to be talking about this for quite some time. So, but that's the old kind of culture. And I think in many ways, you know, you don't talk about, just like if you don't talk about them, it didn't exist. I don't agree with it. I think it's such a healthy thing to talk about these things, to share it, to have someone close to you or friends or family, whatever, to enjoy these moments with you as well. And yeah, I mean, that's just my opinion. Of course, we don't have, and not everyone is entitled to think the same way that I do. Carol, I love what you're saying. Okay, I have to have the understanding of energy that I do now. And, you know, I just think for me, it's always been like that, you know, and I know lots of religions, not just Christianity, lots of religions will tell you certain things. And when people have taken their own lives, for example, they then go to hell or whatever it might be. I don't agree with that at all. I've been given the beautiful gift that I can sense these things, and rest assured they're not in hell. Truffle snuffle, I love this. I had an ectopic pregnancy and my ovarian tube burst and I was near death because of the blood loss. After the surgery, I could feel and knew that I'd lost a little baby girl. And I'm sure that she's with you forever, you know, and that's the beautiful thing. I don't know if you guys actually, I mean, Bryce and I were talking about it not too long ago, that even if you've had an abortion, you know, when mothers get sick, it's like the energy of whether you've given birth to a healthy child who's now 50 years old or whatever, when you or had an abortion or lost a baby, whatever, it's like when your body gets sick, that energy, you know, goes to those particular cells and makes you well, it wants you to be well, of the lost children that you've had as well. It's actually quite amazing. Gail, he passed away in our home, my oldest daughter. That's amazing. You're married for 30 years. I think that's such a privilege to be able to be there at the end for someone, you know.
And of course, that's what they took away from people, that opportunity to do that during the lockdowns. And I think the repercussions of that will be very long lasting because you don't ever get that moment back. Yeah, very, very tough. But I think
that's so true. What you're saying about, the lockdowns, when this happened, and that separation and the pain and the anxiety that caused us. But, you know, for me, I want to say, doesn't matter, because even if they did that to us, we know in our heart of hearts that spirit lives on and it's there. All you have to do is tune in and know that it's just the body that left. Yes, as human beings, you know, it's difficult because we want that physical touch, but, you know, it's a challenge to rise above that, but it's very available to us.
Yeah, I think it's also important to let people feel if that's how they're feeling and let them feel that, you know, just because someone has that belief system, even if you have that belief system yourself, doesn't take away that it's very painful not to be with your loved ones, whether it's human or animal, at the time of their passing. And I think, you know, for me, I think there's so much judgment around this area and people need to be allowed to feel what they want to feel. One of my really good friends, she's very, very young and she lost both her parents very young. So she's been through an awful lot, but she's now a grief counsellor. And it's just wonderful hearing her wisdom from someone so young that's been through it, and the way she can really hold space for people to just go through and share or not share whatever it needs for them. And what a blessing we're in a time now where there are such things as grief counsellors, because not very long ago in our parents' generation, you know, they didn't have anyone to talk to about it. You know, it was very much stiff upper lip, get on with it. So we're lucky that these topics are talked about a lot more now.
Exactly. And especially with someone who's been through that, you know, she would have so much more compassion. I always say that, you know, I mean, it's truly, you know, we become the healers of the things that we've needed to, you know, heal our own wounds from. So when you've been able to feel that wound and heal yourself through it, you then you can become such a fantastic healer for those who are going through it.
Yeah, it's so important. It's how, like you said, with your job, like most of us, that have gone into more alternative things, there's always a reason for it. There's always a life event or events that have led us down those paths. And often, it's true. Look at how many people, one of my best friends in Australia, she's been through really serious cancer as a very young mum, and now she helps other people completely transform their lives. So it's incredible how these tragedies can be turned into a real life purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm just reading again, yeah. Mary, yes. Jessie, we know that Jessie, what's 3 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, lost her son. And she actually wrote a book called 5 Minutes of Grief with God, and where she just spends 5 minutes every day to feel the loss of her son. And I think that is also a very important thing.
Amazing.
To be able to just feel and allow yourself to feel and allow yourself to grieve, right? Yeah. Ewa, again, I've been with probably 5 people at their passing. That is such a beautiful thing, and you are blessed to do that. Absolutely. When my brother, we were in school, he'd be called for the epilepsy seizures. He died first, almost a year younger now. Yeah, it's amazing how when we start looking at death, Lisa, we start seeing it differently. You know what I also find very interesting is people who've had near-death experiences, right?
Fascinating.
And they come back and their lives change completely after that.
And they have a different level of calmness. I'm really fascinated with this. I think as a child, I had some really interesting experiences with knowing other people were going to die, like my cousin in advance. And of course, I didn't understand what was going on at the time, or having very strong memories of past life experiences myself. And so when I see these, these people that have died and come back, it's such a joy, because you can see they literally are living a completely different life to the person that went through that experience. And it's so, so powerful. And again, I know it's a bit boring me saying we've had these conversations, but the last week, it's absolutely ironic that you suggested this subject, because it ties in so closely with all the discussions and how sort of deep in contemplation I've been in those for this week, where there's so much learning we can do for all of this, but all that learning is completely put to waste if we don't change our behavior because of it.
Absolutely. It's really, and it's about the application thereof. But I think some things you can't not change from. I think some things are so profound. They're just like, it's just like the universe just hits you and you go spinning around. And when you eventually stop after 200 spins, you can't not be a changed person after that. And I think these situations definitely change us. And it's about the application. We've got to apply that change.
And also, don't wait for that to happen. Every single person in the chat here has been through this, but we don't want to wait for the next loved one to make the next round of changes that we know in our heart we want to make anyway. And I deal with people all the time. I mean, through my job, dealing with people and either them or their animals who've got major challenges in their life. And it is quite fascinating to see, even on a global scale, it ties into this, how much has to go horribly wrong before a lot of humans will make a change. And I think because we've all involved, all of the listeners that we've got, because we're having all these conversations so much, it is really, really, I can't stress it enough, that all of us absolutely listen to ourselves, listen to these conversations, and actually, if we're called to make changes in our life, make them, because there's nothing worse than the regret of wishing you'd done it sooner. And I'm sure we've all had that feeling at some stage, but age brings a lot of wisdom, and we don't, the whole point.
Absolutely so true, and also having been a healer for many years, working with people who have regret, they would have pointless arguments with a parent or a sibling or a spouse or a child or something, and then something would happen that they would not see them again. And the guilt and the unnecessary sadness that comes along with that. And that's why I say, even if it doesn't matter who you're at odds with, find a way forward. And just, it's just so much easier, nicer, more beautiful just to connect and do the healing. And especially if it's someone that's close to you, because we're always going to understand that we're always just mirrors for each other anyway. And even though we might feel that it's definitely their fault, there's always a lot to be taught in our own lives when we rise above the pettiness, and we then can operate from that place of a much more unconditional, loving space. It's so much more powerful. It's so much more enjoyable. It's so much more relevant, to life than sitting there bearing grudges. Yeah.
See my other cat above on the sofa. And that's the beauty for me. I mean, I love rescuing animals. And as Dragonfly says, we don't know what's wrong. And one of the things I always do is when one of my rescue animals dies, and everyone has a different opinion on this, and that's fine, but I always give another needy animal a home straight away, because I can't bear to think of these animals in shelters when they could have a loving home. And a lot of people don't do that because they need more time to grieve. But for me, it's part of my grieving process is to pour that love into something else. Doesn't mean you forget the other one. And the reason I'm saying that is every single animal, I've got Pumpkin there, Mitzi there, Lola there, Indy there, and every single one I could tell you which animals they replaced, why we got them, because we'd lost another loved one. And it's like
I so agree with you on that.
Cycle going forward. It for me it works. For other people they need more time, and I completely get that. But it just really, every time I look at my animals I've got now, I'm also remembering the one they replaced, and that because that animal passed over or died, it's allowed me to give another one a loving home. So there's always a plus side of this process, this cycle.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
So.
Yay! Well, I mean, I also, and I agree with you, Ewa. Our truths have been hidden from us purposefully, and the poisoning and the hidden agenda. It's a miracle we can function at all. Yeah, been a great awakening, especially in the last 4 years. Absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. And I love that so many people have chosen to wake up. Lisa, that's lovely. Yeah. Anyway, wow, lovely conversation, Catherine. And I know that it's time for us to wish you a beautiful weekend, everybody. And I hope that you all have a fantastic weekend and enjoyable. And yay, encourage you to go and, make amends with whatever, let bygones be bygones. Find the forgiveness in whatever it needs to be, and move forward in a loving way. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you guys in the chat. Always nice.
Yeah, we really do. We have the best people in the chat, and it's just I love the fact that we can have these really deep conversations live with the people in the chat, because it feels like we're all here together in a big coffee shop, having this conversation sort of round. So we really, everyone who joins us, we really, really do appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Wild Aussie Woman, I do agree with you, though. As we always say, these are the types of shows that generally get the least amount of views, but that's okay for now. Those who are meant to see it will see it. These are uncomfortable topics for people, and most people like the sensationalism about who's done what and who's the bad guy and who's the good guy and, who's going to be arrested next and where are they and what are they doing? And, and instead of really focusing that energy on themselves, the day will come when people realize more and more how important that is. And when they do, they'll find these chats with all of us involved. So thank you, everybody, for contributing to the show. Yeah, I love the fact that it is a healing show. That's what we do. Both healers, yeah. So, and I think everyone in the chat absolutely is a healer too. So really enjoy you guys being here. And I want to just say thank you so, so much for joining us today. Catherine, I'm not sure if there's anything you'd like to say just to end off and in closing.
I just think have a really wonderful weekend, and yeah, thank you for being here, and we will be back next week and talk about another fascinating subject. So please come and join us there on my channel next week.
Indeed we will. Okay, everybody, God
Bye-bye.
bless you all. Take good care of yourselves, and we shall catch you. I'm on with Brock from Nasara 17 tomorrow again, and Jesse's Patreon book club on Sunday. Not sure if Caleb will be on the weekend as well. He's also dealing with his own recent grief. So we're all just doing what we need to do. Watch this though. We'll keep you updated. Take good care, everybody. Lots of love. Cherry buys.
Bye. Bye.